This is the High-Stakes Lowdown, a RotoViz podcast brought to you by the Fantasy Football Players Championship. I'm Eric Balkman from the High-Stakes Fantasy Football Hour and the FFPC. You can follow me on Twitter at Eric Balkman and the FFPC on Twitter at FFPC. Before we get into the show, I want to remind everyone that you can get a listeners-only 10% discount to RotoViz by using the code RVRadio2022. That's RVRADIO2022. Your subscription gives you unlimited access to all of the RotoViz content and tools, and it supports the podcast channel. Now, without further ado, here's the latest edition of the RotoViz High-Stakes Lowdown. Welcome in, everybody, to a special Friday edition, holiday edition of the RotoViz High-Stakes Lowdown podcast brought to you by RotoViz and the Fantasy Football Players Championship. I'm Eric Balkman from the High-Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, the Betor Sports Network's High-Stakes Fantasy Football Show, and, of course, the FFPC. Follow me on Twitter at Eric Balkman. Follow the FFPC on Twitter at FFPC. I do want to remind you before we start this evening's show, play the FFPC Weekly Challenge. There's no draft. There's no salary cap. You pick 10 players. You want to play without kickers and defenses. You want to play with kickers and defenses. You get 12 players. And you can just pick one player per team. Watch them ride throughout the weekend. Special note for the Week 16 Weekly Challenge. It is going to be going, the deadline is 1 p.m. tomorrow, which is Saturday, because we have a better part of a dozen games going on with the NFL tomorrow. Only 3 games on Sunday. Thus, the deadline is Saturday this week. You can play for a $35 entry fee, a $200 entry fee, 30-team format, 100-team format, or you can play in the 10-team format, where if you beat the other 9 players in that contest, you will win a free entry into the 2023 FFPC Main Event and can play for $1 million, essentially for free. Don't forget that we also have the Footballguys Playoff Challenge and the world-famous FFPC Playoff Challenge. Footballguys Playoff Challenge, $35 to enter, $100,000 grand prize. The FFPC Playoff Challenge, which has been going on for almost 20 years now, that is $200 to enter, but a $500,000 grand prize. 1,000 people will get paid in that contest. Do not miss out on that. You can sign up for both of those at myffpc.com. I always say, people say, oh, Balky, we don't even know who's in the playoffs yet. Well, some of the teams. And you can register now to make sure you reserve your spots, because these contests sell out and you don't want to be left out in the cold. So make sure you are signing up early, making sure you get your teams in that. And then you can set them. It takes 2 minutes, 3 minutes to set your lineups. And then you're done for the playoffs and you can win $500,000. What is better than that? I say nothing. Tonight, let's get into the show, ladies and gentlemen. I want to bring in our guest tonight, and he's you're familiar with him from the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. He's been a guest on that before. I'm bringing him in right now. The 16th place finisher in the FFPC Main Event Regular Season has his sights set on a $1 million grand prize. Welcome into the program, Brian Jasiak.
Hey.
Brian, welcome in. How are you, man? Happy
Eric,
Friday, happy holidays to you.
Happy holidays. Good to have you. I mean, good to be here, man. Like, a long time coming. It's been a little while, but good to be back here. Excited to talk with you again.
Yeah, it's exciting to have you for sure.
Yeah.
And it's been a good season for you guys. Now, Dan is your brother, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So
I'm the better looking one. So
obviously,
I figured I would be the camera guy, tonight. He'll be in my ear giving me some no. But yeah. We're real close, but he might hop on, but I don't think he can make it tonight.
That's
and
we get that. That's
right.
It's a wild time of year, holidays. I get it. We're less than 48 hours away from Christmas. How do you
football season though, baby?
Yeah, it is football season. Do you guys play any leagues against each other during the season as
Casually?
Well?
Yeah, it's funny. We just had this relationship. I mean, we stopped competing against each other intensely. Honestly, we were like 10, 11 years old. We always wanted to, from flag football, we always wanted to be in the same team. It's just kind of how it was. We're just kind of a different vibe when it comes to brothers. So we've been doing high stakes fantasy football for, with you guys, I mean, probably for 10 years. Doing some of the high stakes leagues. We have 3 dynasty leagues, so it really went from like playing flag football to playing fantasy football. And the only leagues we compete against each other in are like the family leagues that you do for like $100, stuff like that. But we're big into fantasy. So, any high stakes, big leagues, now we team up, but we get competitive, but even so, like, I'll be honest, we'll be like, hey, it looks like you need a tight end week 10. Like, I need this, like, you're trying to help each other out in those $100 family leagues. So it's not too competitive, but we like these better.
It's all about
real money.
Back. Well, yeah. But I mean, the competing against each other probably pays off when you guys team up in the FFPC.
Oh yeah, because we're both aligned. We're both, we both do our research, right? And then we kind of we miss players, right? Like like I'll take credit on like Josh Jacobs this year. Like he was like, we have like my guys, right? That he'll have a few, I'll have a few, and he'll be like, yeah, I don't know, like, I don't see it. Or like I'll say the same thing about someone, and it helps, right? Because you build in those biases, right? If a player screws you over, 2 years ago, it can affect you if you want to draft him this year. So it's hard to work through biases with fantasy football. So it helps to have someone kind of check you on that or give you a different perspective. So it only makes you better.
It does. It only makes you better. The 16th place finish in the FFPC Main Event Regular Season. I know you guys are proud of that, but obviously I have your sights set on something bigger, perhaps $1 million grand prize. So now I know a lot of people want to stack in this format for this championship round, right, Brian? Because then you get the big spike weeks.
Sure.
You guys had the opportunity to grab Kirk Cousins, Tua Tagovailoa, or Tom Brady in the middle of this main event draft to pair with any of your first three draft choices, which were Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, and Mike Evans. You decided to not wait on those three quarterbacks. You decided to grab Justin Herbert right away in the fourth round. Can you kind of take me through the process of, because you guys have been, or you know what it takes to win the whole thing. And there's a lot of people out there saying you should have waited on quarterback. You guys decided against that. How do you defend that? What was the thought process?
It's funny. I mean, we everyone wins, everyone loses. Like we've had our share of winning some of the, the big money, high stakes leagues, right? So it happens. There's some luck involved. There's not always like the hindsight thing, right? The worst is looking back at the draft board after, right? After your draft, you feel good, but when you're looking back now, it's like, oh man, like Justin Herbert, I think he's QB 8 or something right now. Like I mean, I'll be honest. He was I thought he was going to be QB2 behind Josh Allen. I really did. And I had high expectations for him, and he's been a disappointment, clearly, right? He's still Justin Herbert, though, and I feel good with him going into the stretch run here. But yeah, obviously Patrick Mahomes, people are sleeping on him, and look, he goes 3 runs later. I remember being in this draft because we did a lot of drafts in August and early September, and when you're on that, we had the second pick. So coming back in round 4 on the snake, you're thinking, 4 into 5 and back, you're thinking, all right, well, Josh Allen just went, right? Here comes a mini QB run. Might as well get, Herbert, Mahomes, maybe a Kyler now, right? Because they're going to be gone. Snagged Herbert, and it's like, oh man, no quarterbacks went for another 24 picks. So that was just one of those moments where you're just like, damn, like we knew we knew it was bad value, right? It was evident, but it's one of those things where it's still Justin Herbert. It's not a bad pick. It just didn't work out in the moment, right? But even looking around who I would have taken in that spot, I mean, it would have been like a Jerry Jeudy to get our 4th wide receiver, right? It would have been something like that anyway. So end of the day, didn't work out. If it was Mahomes, I think would be laughing more and happier about it. But that was kind of the process at the time, was like thinking there might be a mini run happening. It just didn't.
So, and again, I don't like putting words in people's mouths, but from what it sounds like, while you could have done the stack, clearly, you guys actually thought that not going with the stack and getting with the guy that you thought was going to be the second overall quarterback was the way to win.
That's right. I did work at I worked at DraftKings for 3 years. So DFS stacking, yes, right. And I don't buy that too much with season long fantasy. I just don't. I mean, obviously it's nice to if you can, and it's great offense. It's great, sure, right. I've had my like Tom Brady, Julian Edelman days, like stuff like that. Like what if it happens, it happens. If the value's there, the value's there, great. But just kind of happened that way. Best player available is usually the season long, right?
I would say that is, as much as I always say hashtag get your guys, the stuff I hear from a lot of high stakes players like yourself is let the draft come to you, best player available, and a lot of times that you create your own value that way, which there's something to be said for that. Speaking of creating your own value, you waited until the end of the 8th round, 8-11, to grab your first tight end in this format, which some people would say that's sacrilegious. You cannot wait to the 8th round to take your first tight end. Yet it was Pat Freiermuth, which I know he had the bagel this past week.
I know.
But by and large, Brian, I mean, over the course of the season, not really a bad way to spend your 8th round pick on your first tight end. So tell me a little bit about why you guys were comfortable waiting on that position in this draft.
I mean, just starting off with Jefferson, Hill, and Evans, and I knew I was getting DeAndre Hopkins. I knew it, right? Like, as soon as I got those three, I said, I'm going to get D-Hop in the 7th. I just knew, like, I planned for it. So just having those 4 guys, like, lined up, queued up, we missed out on the Kelce's, the Andrews, the Pitts, the Waller, the Kittle, right? So once those guys go, it's like, I thought Muth was better than Schultz, Goddard, Ertz. Hawkinson would have been probably the exception, and he's had a great year too. But I did like Hawk. But no, I wanted it. He was my late round sleeper at tight end, and I know 1.5 per reception in this one for tight ends. But he was the target all day long, every draft I had. Right, if I wasn't going, we have some dynasty leagues with like Waller, who's been huge disappointment. But yeah, Muth was just sort of that sleeper that, it's different. It's not always the tight end position every year. Sometimes it's, it could be different. It could be a quarterback that, like, instead of getting Herbert in the 4th, it could have been, someone else in like the 12th. That's like a must-have guy, maybe Trevor Lawrence this year or something like that. I was pretty high on him actually. Yeah, no, it just, that was the plan, and we stuck with it and got him, and it worked out great. His value. Tight end's been a tough position this year, really. Like, if you don't have Kelce, and obviously you had to spend a first rounder on them. They're all kind of the same, honestly. Bummer last week, kind of risked it. We had who do we have as we had Fant, who got a late touchdown in the Thursday night game. So that was tough. That was tough to watch, because I think he was like 4 for 20 before that. So I was like, all right, even if Muth gets a bagel because he was an injury question, we'll be all right. But once he was active, I'm like, great. He's been putting up numbers the last few weeks. So, happens, but that's why it's a multiple week playoff, and we're not worried. We got some guys made up for it.
So to get back to your draft player evaluation, you mentioned a lot of tight ends that were going in front of Freiermuth, and you like Freiermuth better than a lot of those guys. Can you tell me a little bit why you guys had Freiermuth significantly higher than a lot of your peers?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'll be honest, like, sometimes it's just like the bias of teams, and just being like, that's Heath Miller, man. That's Heath Miller. Like, it's just, I just know that offense. Like, in all seriousness, so like the Pittsburgh offense is a heavy tight end offense, and he's been sort of groomed in that organization. And I just kind of figured he was going to be ready. Tight ends usually, take a year or two to make a leap, right? Like, rookie tight ends never pan out. Typically, right? So he was in a second rounder in the 21 draft. So I don't know. The organization spoke highly of him. He showed some pop, and I just sort of figured that he was a sleeper, in that offense. So worked out.
It did, and I want to shift focus to the other conference here for a second, because in the 13th round, you grabbed a guy who, outside of last week, the last month and a half, he's been lighting the NFL on fire, and that was Christian Watson from the Green Bay Packers. 14-11 pick, you take Aaron Rodgers. Now, I'm just kind of curious here. You were looking probably for a backup quarterback on this team at some point behind Herbert. Did the Watson pick in the 13th affect you guys? Hey, why don't we take Rodgers here just in case we set the world on fire with Watson? We have Rodgers. I'm guessing no, because of your thoughts on season-long stacking. But at the same time, second part of the question, does he kind of, didn't do much on Monday night against the Rams, but does he become a championship round factor for you in week 16 on Christmas Day when he goes down to Miami to take on the Dolphins?
It's possible. I mean, that was sort of the thinking. Well, I mean, honestly, I remember 14th rounder, it's Aaron Rodgers. Sometimes it's Aaron Rodgers, right? So you think if anything happens to Herbert, He's a safe, he's better than a waiver wire ad, right? Considering we needed one. See a name like that, right? Like it's kind of a rookie move to draft for names, like duh. But in the 14th round, you can kind of do whatever you want, and just seeing him just linger there, it's like why wouldn't we take him as a backup? Just a complete low risk. And then we also do that with our quarterbacks as well. Always look at weeks 13, 14, 15, 16, right? Always see kind of what their matches are. I know he obviously had the week 14 bye, which NFL needs to get rid of, obviously. But yeah, like you said, the matchups that he had against Rams and Dolphins, you like those late season matchups where weather might not be a factor, right? So anyway, yeah, it was just one of those like why not, right, situations, while also his schedule looked okay too. So the
Watson pick didn't really influence.
No, we always like to find some rookies late, right? Watson was there. He had a pretty good showing, so early on, and obviously he's come on lately, right? But yeah, not a stack. No, it just kind of happened that way.
So like Watson's one of those guys too, where it's just like, rookie pass catchers, receivers and tight ends, they don't always light the world on fire in year one. But man, if you can get the guy with the the spark score or whatever it was, with the relative athletic score, beg your pardon, a guy like that, he can out athlete these guys, which he has been doing the last few weeks, even though he doesn't understand the finer points of the game yet. He's going to be an exciting guy in 2023 and beyond.
Yeah, you hope to always be on the right side of like anytime the Packers out. We failed at this like in the past, right? Remember there in 2018, I think we had a big dynasty draft, and we were like the Packers got a bunch of wideouts. And I think that was the year a few guys left. And it was like Equimini St. Brown. It was MVS. Jamon Moore.
Jamon Moore.
Yeah.
We hardly knew
you. He was the fourth round. Yeah, it was like he was the fourth. They got a fourth, fifth, and sixth. And we're like, we're just gonna get all of them. Like we're gonna get them all, and they all sucked, right? So you hope that like same thing with like the Brady offenses too, like and the Pats always get wideouts and they never work out, and you just hope though if one of them does, and yeah, it's one of those things. Like I can't even remember the last Packer wide receiver that really worked out, short of like Devontae Adams.
Like the thing is, like eventually they work out. Like Greg Jennings worked out, Jordy Nelson worked out, Devontae Adams.
Cobb,
but year one,
of course.
Year one, it's just like even Randall Cobb. Like year one, you don't want to count on those guys. But the way that they develop them, and obviously having Rodgers throw to them. Yes, year two and beyond, there's something to be said for it. But rookie year gets a little dicey. James Robinson, inactive Thursday night against the Jags. 20 yards rushing since week 9. Melvin Gordon on the Chiefs practice squad. Why
That's the worst question.
Well,
tough question. I know what you're doing, and I don't have an answer for it. I'm just gonna be a human about it. I am. Why do we have him? I don't know. There's a lot.
I just thought you believed in their upside.
No, I mean. I can half joke about it. Yes, I do. And if you look at the waivers, like there's not a lot out there. Right. So it's one of those things where it's like our starting lineup is so strong and our short bench is really strong. Some up and comers like the Cam Akers, Brian Robinson, Treylon Burks, Jameson Williams. So like we have, and Noah Fant even as a tight end too. Right. Like we have so many guys that it's almost, we're used to these dynasty leagues where you have 20 spots and then you throw an IR, you could have like 24 roster spots. So it's like, it's borderline. It's almost like where sometimes when we're in these leagues, we're in dynasty mode where we're just holding guys because we're coming back next year. It's just sort of like one of those things where we're so dynasty heavy and dynasty focused and we're doing all that like it just wasn't much. And I'll be honest, it's embarrassing to admit that the roster's locking snuck up on me, and I forgot that you couldn't make ads after week 50.
It happens.
It happens. Like I know it's just there's a lot going on, a lot of leagues, but no, it's just one of those things. There wasn't much out there. Just kind of like whatever. But yeah, in hindsight, it's like great. Yeah, I would have liked to add a second defense, even a second kicker in case something weird happened. It's just but that being said, Pat's defense, Justin Tucker, like those are don't bench those guys. I mean, it's fine. It worked out fine, but
I ask it in part because I have players like this on my own redraft teams where the rosters are locked, and I'm like, what am I doing with these guys? But I mean, there is something to be said. Like, I mean, you never know what's going to happen. 3-week championship sprint. I mean, who had Arlen Harris that one year for the Rams back in the day? Like, not a whole lot of people. And then he
You
ended
never
up
know.
winning people, 5-6 figures that year. So
Yeah.
there's something
Melvin
exciting.
Gordon's ready to play. Call him up. Come on.
He's in mid-season mode in late in the season. Bring him on. You never know. You never know these things. That's the thing is like, I never want to rip on people for doing stuff like this because when I have in the past, it works out and then I end up with egg on my face. So, who knows?
That's just why, like, even Odell's just been rowing on that. We picked him up a few, 5-6 weeks ago when he was all over the news, and it's like, he's nothing either. But it's just one of those things where those last 3-4 spots, it's just not going to make or break your season. So you might as well go for these crazy upside or like these crazy practice squad or whatever. There's not even in the league guys, like whatever.
Yes. There's no way it's going to break your season, but there is a chance it could make your season, and that's why we do it, right?
Yeah.
You guys had a couple of pretty talented rookie receivers that you got off the waiver wire this year, and I know you have to pick up a big score in Week 16 to vault your way back up into the standings to try to be in contention for the 6-figure prize. Jameson Williams, Treylon Burks, any of them entering the Week 16 start-sit discussions for you? Or are they just simply too risky? Like maybe it's more of a Week 17 question where you put those guys in.
Oh, man, it's just too risky. I mean, it's just, you look at like Jameson Williams, man, like he's got, what do you have? 1 catch for 41 yards and a score, like, and 1 target last week, like, all the talent in the world, and Treylon Burks is, that offense obviously super run heavy in Tennessee, and I'm burying the lead at our 4 wideouts being Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, DeAndre Hopkins, and Mike Evans. So it's like where are either of those guys going, right? And I got maybe a little too cute last week. It only cost me a couple points, but I ended up benching Mike Evans in the second flex spot for Brian Robinson because he had I know Brian Robinson has been getting a lot of carries, right? He's been getting 20 plus carries, and last time he played the Giants, I think he had 3 touchdowns, or 2 or 3. Had a good game against the Giants, and just he was okay. I think he had 90 yards and a grab, and Mike Evans was. I don't think Mike Evans had a second half catch. So they end up evening out, but that's a tough thing too, because like all season we just rode our starters, and then you start to overthink a little bit in the playoffs. You look at matchups, you look at stuff, and it's like that was one of those moments where as soon as it locked, I'm like, did I just bench Mike Evans? Even though he's been rough last few weeks, he has. Like it made sense, right? But it's one of those things where like, man, just like roll with the guys that got you there sometimes. But it's tough.
You mentioned Hopkins. Any trepidation starting Hopkins this week with McSorley throwing to him?
No. I mean, put me out there. I mean, that dude. When was the last time he got less than 10 targets in a game? It doesn't matter who's throwing the ball. It's just, it's just no, not even a thought. Doesn't matter. He's an automatic guy.
So the Pats defense, you mentioned him earlier. I think I know the answer to this question. They're taking on Joe Burrow tomorrow, this Saturday. Why are the matchups for the Patriots just good enough for you guys to spend your roster spots elsewhere that you're just going to ride the Patriots through the whole 15, 16, 17?
Yeah, I mean, Patriots are going to win outright after that embarrassing loss. I mean, they will. Watch. It's just it's going to be the classic, like, Patriots are the worst team. They look awful. They're making dumb decisions. Like, the coaching is bad. All the calls are bad, and they'll win this game. Like, watch. They'll win this game, and they'll dominate. I don't know how. I don't know why, but they will. It's just what they do. But, if you want to do stats too, which is fun every now and then, right? At home, they're good. They're like 15 points average at home on defense, right? So, and I think they close out the year at home, right? So there's not that defense is one of those things you can overthink all day long, and we do it all the time in our dynasty leagues and other leagues like that, right? Like you're playing the matchups, you're playing paper, right? You're on paper. Doesn't always work out that way. It rarely ever does, right? Ever. So yeah, just kind of stick with a good unit, and I like the home. If you can you get a defense at home in the cold, not in a dome. Weird shit happens. I like that. So yeah, we'll stick with it. Not scared.
I just looked up you mentioned the Hopkins thing. So since he's come back, week 7, obviously his first week back this season, he has missed out on double-digit targets twice this season, week 9 and week 12. But hold on. Okay. In those games that he missed out on double-digit targets, scored a touchdown both games. I mean, like the floor for Hopkins is higher than a lot of guys' ceilings at this point.
It's ridiculous. Like it's not a matter of are we starting him? It's where do I put him visually? Do I put him in the wide receiver spot?
Flex.
Yeah, or do I put him in the flex? Like, do I Tyreek Hill and J. Jeff though? Like, I mean, sorry, DeAndre. I mean, if he calls me up and he needs the motivation to be in that spot, fine. But
yeah,
we'll leave him there.
I'll get you his number and we'll make that happen. Or I'll get him your number. That'll work out. Jonathan Taylor. He was the de facto #1 overall pick for a lot of leagues this season. Not every single one, but most of them. Obviously, let a lot of people down.
Yeah.
2-part question here for you, Brian.
Sure.
How do you think Taylor's 2022 is going to affect the way people draft him next year? And the second part is, how will you and Dan be drafting Jonathan Taylor next year?
It's a good question. I mean,
and I know it's early in the game, unfair question, but I thought I'd put it to you anyway.
Yeah, I mean, end of the day, it's the touchdown regression. It's classic, right? It's one of those things where you don't draft a guy first overall that just ripped. What do you have? 18 rushing touchdowns last year, something like that, right?
I'm looking it up right now.
And I don't know, 20 total, maybe 18. And he's getting draft. You don't draft players for their previous season output, right? That's just not what you do. It's not good value. It's not smart, right? I had Jonathan Jefferson last year. He wasn't a first overall pick, right? Got him an auction. He was not the top auction guy last year, right? But now he is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's just pretty standard stuff. You let the the non-veterans take guys like that, right? Next year, love him. Great value. Yeah. Right, bring him on, right? But he still was a beast though. Like he still got a lot of carries this year, right? I mean, 20 plus in a lot of games. I mean, I shouldn't say a beast. Like obviously, I don't mean that because compared to last year. But
I mean,
he still ran well.
Exactly. I mean,
carry,
like 4.5 yards a carry. 4.5 yards a carry this year for Taylor.
Right. Game script is a big deal, right? Game flow. He's still a great runner, but like you're not going to match 18 touchdowns, right? It's just not going to happen. I mean, how many times I'd love to see a stat on running backs even matching double-digit touchdowns consecutively. Like how many running backs have done that 3 years in a row, for example? Like I don't know, it's probably not a lot. So I mean, he had 18 last year, he had 4 this year. So maybe he'll have the 10, 12 next year and be just fine.
Some of my best fantasy teams over the years have been drafting proven players off bad years, right? Because you always get such a great discount on them.
Absolutely. I love the bad year. Always buy low, right? And then I love contract years. Love contract years too. Yeah. Huge.
We were talking about Hopkins earlier. I want to frame this question for 2023. So 702 is where you got him, and obviously you had the luxury of taking him at the 702 because you had those 3 stud receivers early on. You knew he was going to miss the first 6 weeks of the season. Looking ahead to 2023, knowing Kyler Murray, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people's opinion, I know that there's glowing positivity that he's going to be ready for the start of the season. I don't think that's going to happen. How far of a plunge do you think Hopkins will and or should take in 2023, knowing that fantasy owners let him go to the 6th, 7th, 8th round this year, knowing that he was going to miss the first 6 games of the season, wouldn't play at all? Now you think he's going to be available for all the games, but he's probably going to have Colt McCoy, Trace McSorley, or somebody else thrown to him.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously an easier question come August, but I mean, it all depends on where he's going, right? He's a first round guy, right? If Kyler's there, right? He's up there with like, obviously not like Jefferson and
Adams, Diggs.
Yeah, I was gonna say Diggs, exactly. I was just gonna say that, like, right? Yeah. He's in that tier. So I mean, if Kyler's out just 4 games, I wouldn't change anything. We also don't know their situation. Like, who are they going to bring? Are they going to bring in a vet to backfill? Are they going to really go in with McSorley and Colt McCoy? Like, it's tough. Like, I just draft the player, right? Like he's a stud. He's a beast. He's going to get his. And if any quarterbacks, if he's on your team, you're throwing him the ball. And
right.
End of the day, it's an NFL quarterback that's throwing him it. So it wouldn't change things drastically. I mean, it would have to be a situation where, Kyler's been ruled out. He's not coming back till week 10, for example.
Right.
And D-Hop's still going in like the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round. It's like, all right, well, not really. Like getting him at 7th round value this year, like perfect,
Right.
unbelievable. This was exactly how I lined it up. I said, look, we can make it through 6 weeks. Not a big deal at all. And then we have him closing out the year, and look where we're at now.
Can you give us, and I know this is always dicey when we're talking championship round, but a player that not a lot of FFPC players are going to be starting this week that you think should be in their lineups actually in week 16, and then a player that many people will start that you have trepidations about, you think he's going to underwhelm in week 16, Brian?
Oh, I mean, if it's okay, I'm just going to take guys from my team, and I'll pick apart a starter of mine that I'm not happy about, and I've already mentioned him, and then a guy on my bench. And I think a sleeper. I mean, it's Cam Akers. It's like it's a weird name. I don't think people are like accepting of it yet, but he's been okay last few weeks. Like he's been okay. If you need somebody, he's been okay. We don't need that right now, but he's a guy that like I could see him having 2-3 touchdowns. Right, it can happen. I'm happy I don't need to take that risk because I don't want to throw a dart for hoping Akers has 24 points. We have Josh Jacobs and Montgomery both in contract years. Love that. They've been great. But I think Cam Akers, when you say sleeper, right? Like it's a lower tier guy, obviously. So
right.
He's a guy that like we haven't. I think I've only had to start him one time this year because of bye weeks. And it was after his double touchdown game. I think he had like 10 or 11 points the following week. Fine, in the fill-in for that weird week 14 bye. And then the other guy is Mike Evans. I'm nervous. I'm just nervous about Mike Evans. I don't like it. I think last week was I'm trying to find the right words. It was almost like fake hope, like a false hope. I think since his bye week, I don't think he's had more than 10 points, which it was a week 11 bye.
Right.
And even before that, I think he was lingering around 10 points. Like he's been awful. Like he's a huge name, obviously. You got Brady, obviously, but he has been terrible. And he's in the flex right now because you do the thing where you're like, it's Mike Evans, it's Tom Brady. And yeah, he went into halftime with he was 5 for 83 going into halftime last week. I remember, and I'm sitting there like, oh my God, I can't believe I started Brian Robinson, who was playing Sunday night. So it's one of those things where you're okay. You're like, Brian Robinson could still have 3 touchdowns against the Giants. I'm going to be fine. But I'm thinking like, wow, Mike Evans 5 for 83 going into half. Like he's going to come out with like 10 for 150 and 2. Didn't have a catch in the second half. And it's like, there he is. Right. So it's like one of those things where I almost wish he popped off last week, so I'd be more confident this week to keep him in. So we'll see. I mean, weird. I know he tweaked his hamstring on a play, but he did come back in the first half. So I don't know. I'll have to keep an eye on that. But he just makes me super nervous, and a lot of people are forced to kind of start him because if you have Mike Evans, chances are he's your wide receiver 2 or 3, right? Anyway, long-winded answer, but yeah.
But a good one. A lot of analysis there. Mike Evans, fun stat about him: 3 touchdowns on the season. He had 1 the first week, and then he had 2 against the Chiefs in week 4. Has not scored since then. And you mentioned the 5 for 83 this week, but 4 for 44, 4 for 59, 2 for 31, 5 for 54, 5 for 40. I mean, you have to go back to week 8 when he actually had a difference-making output in 6 for 123 against the Ravens. And, this week at the Cardinals, I mean, I don't know what to think about that Buccaneers.
Maybe we're having a nice little open private conversation about us starting Treylon Burks, in Houston instead. We'll find out, or not in Houston, but in Tennessee.
In Tennessee against
Houston.
Yeah.
I think they're hosting the Texans. Yeah. So who knows?
Tell me a little bit about, before I let you go here, WagerEdgeSports.com.
What gave it away?
I had to. Well, I'm gonna drill the URL into the viewers' heads here.
Thank you.
WagerEdgeSports.com. Was this you and Dan, or this is you, Dan, and other people?
Yeah, so it's me and Dan started up. Like I said, come from DraftKings. Love the sport. So when I started DraftKings, it was DFS, all DFS. Right. And towards the end, that's when it shifted into sports betting was taken over. And I think right now, it's pretty much half the country is legalized. It's like 60-40 right now. It's a huge opportunity, right? I think we all know that sports betting is going to become mainstream. It's going to be everywhere. It's going to be in, it already is being embraced by every league. So we've always done it, right? I've done it for years, and we find ourselves reading random articles or typing in like, what do you like in this game tonight on Google, and you just read some analysis by a random person,
right?
And you blindly just sort of take their advice, right? And if they lose, it's fine, right? Like gambling it's entertainment, it's fun, it's not something that you're going to win long term. Like, let's be honest, right? Like it's just fun, it's entertainment. But we thought, why are we listening to random people? Like I have guys for every if I have a UFC fight, I don't know anything about UFC, but I have a couple of buddies who love UFC. I'm like, all right, who do you like tonight? And if quick answer, same with any other sport, right? Like I know NFL, I know PGA. So the idea was, let's just create our own site that we will give out picks, and it's just from people that know the sports they cover. Mm-hmm. It's not like just other sites that just pay people to like write about and you just trust them, right? Like I think I was looking at one major brand, their head baseball writer. I looked into his Twitter. He had like 300 followers, and he was a sophomore in college. And it's like people are listening to this, and they don't do the research. They don't see behind it. So if you go to wagerheadsports.com, you can kind of read about us. We're just people who love sports and are authentic, and we don't write paragraphs to get you to like convince you into the pick. It's just, we know it, we live it, we breathe it. Everyone that writes, that's the sport that, like, our hockey guys are just, they're hockey. You could ask them about Freiermuth, they'd be like, what is that? Is that food? Like, I don't know who that is. Like there's hockey guys.
It's the new appetizer, right? TGI Friday.
That's who you want. Yeah. If you're not a hockey guy, but you're out at a bar and you just want to get some action out of a game, like that's what you want. So we're quick hit stuff. We just started this past March Madness. So we're just trying to get our brand out there. Nothing crazy, like just sort of, it's just a huge market, and we do it anyway. So we have group chats, and then we just throw it on the site. So it's up and coming, but it's all just genuine, people, authentic people, friends that love it, and that's kind of what we're rolling with. And it's a very it's hard to trust people with this stuff. So that's kind of what we're going for. Just sort of be authentic, sort of be community driven. So I appreciate you asking about it. And,
well, I have a few more questions about it.
Yeah,
this is completely free.
It is. Yep. So we're not a bookie. It's just picks.
You get free picks.
We do best bets. Yeah, it's just best bets. So it started with the idea of just quick hit best bets. So for the games tomorrow, it'll just be like the best bets. We usually do spread. We'll throw in some props here and there, but yeah, it's just a voice. It's just another voice, and here's why. And like I said, the worst thing. I'm not going to name somebody like competitors out there, but when you're looking for some advice, you don't want to read. You don't want to spend 10 minutes reading.
Yeah.
You don't need people to make, like, a lot of people make jokes in there, and it's like you just want to scroll down to the bottom and see what the pick is. Just tell me what the pick is. So we try to do a couple quick stats and a pick, right? And you sort of want to just assume that if we're putting it out there, we know it, we believe it. We could write 10 pages about a game, but that's not what a consumer wants, right? So it's just quick stuff. It's free. We're starting up. So we have a few people that we really trust with the picks. But yeah, we're not some, machine like an Action Network who are, heavily, that has investors and they run every single game and all these promos and everything. We're just sort of a, small niche community, but we try to put out good picks. Right.
Right.
Really
NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB, you have PGA, college basketball, college football, soccer, UFC. It's pretty much it, right?
That's all.
That's pretty. I don't know what else is out there.
That's everything. That's everything. And like I said, we did some World Cup stuff, right? So it's one of those things where we do have, Twitter is our main outreach. So if you can follow us at at Wagerhead Sports on Twitter. So we try to post some stuff there because it's not every single day, right? Like college hoops, March Madness, every day. NFL playoffs, every game, right? NHL will be 3 times a week, for example, but in the playoffs, every game, right? So that you'll kind of get our vibe and sort of see what our post schedule is, because we don't want to just post to post either, right? We want to post on the big hockey nights, the big basketball nights, stuff like that. So, that's what a lot of these other sites do. It's just content. They just want to throw stuff out there, for clicks and for revenue and all that stuff. So we try to be as authentic as possible, and we only post if we kind of feel it and believe it. So that's kind of the model.
Yeah, absolutely. So all major sports, even some of the minor sports, you get daily analysis, best bets, parlays, props. That's all at wageredgesports.com, at wageredgesports on Twitter. And for a company, you guys just starting less than a year ago, already creeping up on 10,000 followers. That's quite the growth. So obviously you're doing something right.
Yeah, it's organic growth too. And that was the model. And it was just, it was organic. Nothing's been paid yet. We haven't done any ads, like nothing like that. Just sort of, a buddy of mine that I worked with at DraftKings, we worked like the branding together. So we just wanted it to look good, all that stuff, right? Look good, feel good, play good, right? That's what they say. So no difference with the website and the blog. So I
think it was Ray Allen said that back in the day. You look good, you feel good, you play good. That's what you're doing over at Wager Edge Sports. That's what you're doing in the FFPC main event right now too. So listen,
at least in the regular season, we'll see how the playoffs.
Well, yeah, exactly. You got 2 more weeks to get up there to try to cash that milli. So best of luck to you, Brian. I want to thank you so much for joining me on a busy holiday weekend. I know you're slammed, obviously, with FFPC, with Wager Edge Sports, with everything, family stuff going on. So certainly appreciate you making some time for me in this show. Good luck the rest of the way in the main event. Good luck with Wager Edge Sports, wageredgesports.com, at Wager Edge Sports on Twitter. Thank you so much. Happy holidays, man. I really appreciate this.
Appreciate you, Eric. Happy to come by anytime. Happy holidays to you. And thanks again.
You got it. Thank you, Brian. Be good. We'll talk to you soon.
Next time. Bye.
You got it. Brian Jasiak, ladies and gentlemen, the 16th place finisher in the FFPC Main Event Regular season, setting his sights on a $1 million grand prize as we are just 2 weeks away from crowning an FFPC Main Event millionaire for the first time ever. That will complete tonight's show. I do want to thank Brian Jasiak for joining me tonight. I want to thank RotoViz, the FFPC, and of course, each and every one of you for listening, viewing, downloading, streaming, what have you. A few things I want to mention before I step away from you this evening. Number one, you say, Bulky, what are you doing a high-stakes lowdown on Friday for? I thought you did HSFF Hour. I do HSFF Hour on Friday, and I will be doing the high-stakes fantasy football hour with Farrell Elliott in less than 2 hours right on this FFPC YouTube channel. It is going to be myself, Farrell, and the 21st place finisher in the Footballguys Players Championship regular season, Rick Kaufman, is going to be joining us tonight to talk about week 2 in the championship round for the FPC. So your starts and sits questions are answered. We'll get some late breaking injury stuff on the show. And a reminder, Saturday football. We have 11 games tomorrow, people, that start at 1 p.m. Eastern. Make sure that you are getting your lineups in early before the Christmas festivities take hold of your life. So my special PSA on that. The RotoViz High-Stakes Lowdown will be back on Tuesday at 10/9 Central with the FFPC Week 15 main event second place team in the championship round. Norm Barons will be my guest. We'll talk about how he's trying to become an FFPC millionaire this year. And then on the Better Sports Network High-Stakes Fantasy Football Show on Wednesday, 10/9 Central, RotoViz's Curtis Patrick will co-host that program with me, 10 to midnight on the Better Sports Network. Download the app in Google Play and the App Store. It is for free. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Remember to like, share, subscribe, comment, all those good things. So we make sure we bring you the best possible content and the most possible content we can here on the FFPC YouTube channel. Be good, everybody. I'll talk with you in about 100 minutes on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Thank you for listening to the High Stakes Lowdown, a RotoViz podcast brought to you by the Fantasy Football Players Championship. And thanks to Grapes for our theme music. Please review the podcast on iTunes under the RotoViz radio feed. It helps us find new listeners. Contact us via email, rotovizradio@gmail.com. We'd love to hear what you think, and follow us on Twitter at RotoVizRadio. And remember, you can always support the show by subscribing to RotoViz at a 10% discount through the NFL podcast homepage, rotoviz.com/podcast.